I've never had a guest on this show where more people have come to me with advice for questions to ask them. His owners, other trainers, trainer Mike Maker. How are you, Mike?
Everything's good, Andy.
Talking to the mic as much as you can. They want to hear you. I can hear you wherever you are.
I'm not sure they want to hear me.
They definitely want to hear you. They don't even know you. It's you've gotten, actually, you've started, people used to be afraid to, do you think people were afraid to ask you for interviews?
Well, I might have been shy on the first couple ones, but after that I said, you know what, if I don't open my mouth, nobody wants to come and talk to me. It might be a good idea.
Yeah, I noticed you doing interviews when I was at Gulfstream a few years ago, and I said, oh, Mike Maker's doing interviews. I'll have to get him on the radio show. And it took me 3 years before you told one of your owners, who's here, Kirk Wyckoff, that you wanted to come on the show. I felt very impressed.
Well, after all these years, I finally said, Andy Sterling, what could top this Saratoga meet?
Well, you have sat behind me once at the track. So I have a question. When you're here, you also have a big string at Ellis Park. Is that true?
They're Churchill Downs, but we do ship to Ellis.
Do you go back and forth?
Yes.
Do you go to Ellis when they're racing at all, when the horses are?
No.
Okay, you don't. Because I want to know what it's like to be in Saratoga one day and Ellis Park the next day.
Well, I have done it before, but now that I've gotten older, that drive kind of gets to me.
Yeah, but Kentucky Downs, you'll be going there at the end of the meet.
Absolutely.
And you've been a big player there for a while, and obviously the purses have gotten good, and they'll be running towards the end of the meet. But we don't want to talk about that. So I was reading up on you. You owned your first horse when you were 13. Is that true?
That's correct. His name was Fool's Exodus.
And did you make any money with him?
Well, my father was a trainer, so he bought him at Timonium for $2,500. I was delivering the Detroit Free Press. I had $600. He won his first race, a claimer at Hazel Park, for $4,000, and I said, this is easy.
Yeah, we've all said that at one time or another.
He never won again, and I never got a training bill. But.
And you started working for your father?
Yes, I started in 1979. He had this game to play. He said, I bet you can't clean that stall before the horse gets back from training. I said, oh, yeah, I can.
And?
Oh, I did it, yes. I didn't get paid for it, but I did it.
Well, there was the horse. You were working that off. And you ended up going out on your own briefly before becoming an assistant trainer.
My last year in Detroit, I had worked for my father, and then also he had a client that gave me, he'd buy horses from California real cheap, bring them to Detroit. He'd say, pick some. We'd pick them. We'd have some fun. So,
what was Hazel Park and Detroit Racecourse like to you? I mean, were they fun tracks to be at, or were they?
They really were. I got an article the other day, and it was just fun going back through. But, I'll tell you, when I was at that age, it was like I'd go to friends' houses, girlfriends' houses, and they'd say, oh, what's your family doing? They'd start taking their kid away. I was like, I'm bragging about this, and they're, don't hang out with this kid.
I had that experience. I had a girlfriend once, and I used to go to the Hamptons. It was awful. I'd have to go to the Hamptons for a couple weekends of the summer, and I couldn't go to Belmont those weekends. I'd hang out with her friends, and they'd ask me, and she'd start saying, Andy goes to the track. And she was so annoyed that they were so disgusted by it. She said, you hit a pick six for $160,000 the other day. So at least she bragged for me. So you ended up going to work for Wayne Lukas. How did that come about?
It was the end of the season in Detroit in November of '93. And I was calling around looking for jobs, wanting to get out of Detroit. And they called Dallas Stewart. They had an opening to go to Oakland Park. And it was a great 10 years of my life.
And were you working with, do you see Wayne that much, or was he sort of traveling around a lot?
Yes, after Dallas left, I took over at Churchill Downs. Wayne was there a lot, and then also up here at Saratoga. So, and then Keeneland, we drive back and forth every day. So, we had great relations.
Were those your first experiences at Saratoga?
Yes.
And what was it like coming here for the first time?
I said, it's not Detroit.
No, it's not. I'll take your word for it. I haven't been. So working for Wayne, you were around, who were some of the horses he had at that time? Tabasco. Were you there when Tabasco Cat was winning the big race?
I just started. I started 2 weeks before Jeff had gotten hurt. But Tabasco Cat was my first Derby experience with Wayne.
That must have been pretty great. I mean, won the Preakness in Belmont.
Yep.
And you also were working with him when he had Charismatic?
Charismatic, yes.
Were you involved with Charismatic?
Yes.
That was pretty exciting.
Did you bet him? Cat Thief was a horse that Charismatic came from California prior to the Derby, so I was only around him a short time. And Cat Thief, I worked with since he came in as a 2-year-old.
So, Breeders' Cup Classic winner.
Yes, third in the Derby.
Triple Crown winners. That's not bad. So, Cat Thief's one of these horses that nobody remembers that was actually a really good horse.
I've got a scar in here that I'll remember the rest of my life.
Really? How did that happen?
He was supposed to have some time off after the 2-year-old Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and he's a very high-strung horse, and he liked to walk the stall. And I worked with him a lot, so I walked in there and said, "Come on, boy," and was patting him, and then boom, he just let me have it.
Nice. Well, so you ended up going out on your own after working with Wayne, and it seems to me a lot of the major success you've had has been with horses you claimed. I wanted to ask you about, did you claim Furthest Land?
Yes.
And he won the Breeders' Cup Mile.
That's correct.
How did that come about that you claimed? Was that for Ken Ramsey?
Yes.
Did you pick him out?
No.
Okay.
He called me up. There was probably about 25 minutes to post that I want to claim this horse in Belmont.
Really?
So we scrambled to get it done, but we got it done.
Did you? Oh, now you claim he's one of 2 horses that Ken Ramsey claimed from Christophe Clement. The other one being the one who was a Cadianis, and they did very well, right? Because Furthest Land, I believe, was related to Dynaver. It was a very good horse that Christophe had.
I don't recall.
I think he was. So he won. How much did he claim him for? How much did he win?
$35,000.
And he won probably well over $1 million.
I think so.
And the horses that you've claimed that you've done well with, do you pick them out? Do your owners pick them out? Do you talk about it together?
It's been a little of both, but like Mr. Ramsey, Kurt Wyckoff, a lot of them are involved. And Michael Hoy, they call up and said, "You like this horse? Check him out."
You've managed to work for Kurt Wyckoff, who's here, and Ken Ramsey. They're probably 2 of the more opinionated. Some might say, especially in Mr. Ramsey's case, can be a little mercurial. How is it getting along with those guys? I like Kirk, but, easy?
I'm still working for him, so I guess I'm doing all right.
I guess if you get winning, you're doing well. It seems a lot of the horses you've claimed and done well with them are horses that you've claimed, turf horses that you've stretched out. Horses like Bigger Picture. I mean, there's a long list of them, Zula Alpha. Is that something that you think you do well, or you find that maybe these are horses that are more suited to longer distances than they're running in?
Well, I think, they were bred for it. They didn't, at those times, there's not a whole lot of opportunities to run those type of races, and when we did, they flourished and just sort of got lucky.
You think you got lucky? I don't think you got lucky. Kirk, do you think you got lucky? No, we don't think you got lucky. I mean, it's happened too often. I mean, there was a time when you had as strong a percentage, not just percentage, but a record with ROI, with claiming horse in the turf. It's gotten a little bit tougher, though. Or maybe people are just hip to the fact that you do well in those circumstances.
I just think it got tougher.
Is it just because there's so many, you come up here and there's so many claims on horses, it's hard to find horses to claim?
Yeah, with the purses going up in Kentucky, the purses are always well here. Kentucky Downs, it's harder to get that higher level claimer than it used to be.
Do you work a lot with your owners or talking about horses, or do you actually, they recommend to you or you recommend to them?
I do a lot of listening.
You do a lot of listening? Really? You're being awfully modest here, and I think you're a little sharper than you're leading on. I could be wrong about that. As far as, you do have one horse that I think you have to tell us stories about. You won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile with Hansen, and he had a pretty colorful owner. Is that correct? How was that?
Very colorful.
He liked the color of the horse, right?
Yes. Well, Hansen came in and he showed a talent immediately. He's a bit headstrong, but showed a lot of talent. Mr. Hansen likes to gamble. He paid his way through college gambling. So basically when he hired me, he said, "If you like a horse of mine, let me know because I like to bet." So he hired me, I think, in April one year, and I don't think I talked to him for 3 or 4 months. And I'd text him, say, I think we started off like 4 for our first 7, and I never spoke to him other than the day he hired me. Well, the next year, Hansen comes along and talked to him and said, "Yeah, Kendall, you're right. He's as advertised, so forth." He says, "I want to run him at Monmouth Park." That was the year the purses were.
Oh, right, the big meet, yeah.
And I want to bet on him. Don't run him in Kentucky. Don't run him here, either Monmouth or California. Well, we enter him, the race doesn't fill. Can't get a hold of him. So finally, after about a month not getting hold of him, I said, Kendall, I left him a message. I said, Kendall, can you name this horse? He's a good horse. Why don't you name him after yourself? Quit worrying about betting. We'll make it up at the races. That got his attention. He called me back. The horse was named. Unfortunately, we had to run him at Turfway, which he won easily.
Right.
And came back in the Kentucky Cup Juvenile 2 weeks later and won. Then won the Breeders' Cup.
And then he won the Breeders' Cup. And did he win it all as a 3-year-old?
Yes, he won the Gotham and he won the Iowa Derby.
All right. We went to Gotham at Aqueduct. You would think I would remember that. I bet him in the Breeders' Cup, by the way. I did bet him. But he did some crazy stuff, right? Like he brought like a lot of women and stuff. And weren't there a lot of crazy stories with him? You going to share some of these? Come on, open up a little. They want some stories.
Well, the best story, he had hired somebody to color his tail at Keeneland in the Bluegrass. Well, we had to ship over, I don't know, 2 or 3 days before the race. Well, I get to the barn at Keeneland, and it's a very hot Bluegrass day. And Hansen was a hot horse to begin with, so he's got a film crew. He's got a lady there that's got blankets on him, dyeing his tail, blow drying his tail, and the horse is washed out, and I'm just saying that you got to be kidding me. So he also was doing the show for NBC that day. Well, the phone service at Keeneland was terrible when they had big crowds. You wouldn't get anything. So anyway, the stewards, I had a bunch of horses in that day. The stewards come to the paddock and said, we just saw this on television. Is this true? And I said, yeah. And they said, you can't alter a horse's appearance. I said, I'm aware of that, but he told me that he had permission. They're like, no, you didn't get our permission. So I see his daughter and ask if I can't get a hold of him, if he could come to the paddock, because I had horses in consecutively. Nothing. So I'd won the Commonwealth. And when they take you to the infield, my phone starts going da-ding, da-ding, da-ding. That time I had instructed my assistant to wash the blue out of the tail. And then Mike Battaglia came over, which was working for NBC, and Kendall was mic'd. So I started cussing and saying some stuff I probably shouldn't have said. Mike Battaglia had his mic on, so it was going right to Kendall's ear.
Oh, that's nice.
So we got the blue out of the tail, and when we got to the paddock, me and Kendall had a very public confrontation. And
Was that it? Was that the end of your relationship with him?
well, it was going to be. The next day, I cooled out, and Kendall said, I know your heart's in the right place. You're drawing attention, trying to get people following, and I didn't handle it the best way, but...
Well, he did get a lot of attention. I'm not sure how much all of it was positive, but he got a lot of attention. He did turn it into a bit of a circus. So this weekend, you're running 2 in the Bowling Green, Zool Alpha and
That's correct.
Bigger Picture. Are you excited?
Very.
Have you won stakes in Saratoga?
Yes.
What have you won?
Let's see, I won a New York bred stake in 2009, and then won the Sanford.
Who'd you win the Sanford with? One of us should remember, don't you think? It probably should be you, to be honest.
Didn't hold Andy.
Yeah, understood. So am I. Obviously, I am, because neither one of us remembers, and it couldn't have been that long ago. How many horses do you have in Saratoga right now?
30.
Do you have? And you're coming off a big meet for 3 Diamonds at Belmont. You guys were right near winning it.
Yes.
How is Kirk to train for? Tell the truth.
Well, it's great because you get a very passionate owner, and you get a different insight that you might not be thinking. So, I think we got a great relationship.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite
he's-
people to talk to the track. I love talking.
You can tell him like it is. You don't have to sugarcoat anything, and our profession, that's a big plus.
Is it hard with owners sometimes telling them that? Because unfortunately, there's a lot of bad news. Horses are laid up or whatever. Is that one of the tougher parts of the game?
It is. I mean, it's never a fun phone call to make, but needs to be done. And
How are the 2-year-olds looking?
I think we got a lot of nice 2-year-olds this year.
How about Dushare? Can he bounce back?
He's going to have to do more than bounce back.
He's going to have to do a lot of bouncing back. That's a pretty tough spot.
See, I can tell Kurt that.
Well, it's a tough spot. I mean, I have a question actually about him. He was scratched going to the gate in the True North. What was the story with that?
I don't know. I saw the state vet after, and IRED came back and said he was warming up, and all of a sudden he started going lame. We got him back to the barn, never had an issue, and never really came to any reasoning what had happened.
one of those things. Mike, thanks so much for joining us.
Welcome,
Wish you the
Andy.
best of
Thanks
luck in
for having
Saratoga. Thanks a lot, man.